This is the Baunfire Gaming Podcast, episode 308. I'm your host, Morgan, aka Bon Diesel, and this week we'll be talking about Hellblade 2 coming to PlayStation soon. BioWare is hiring again for Mass Effect. Naughty Dog is working on a second game, and legitimately a bunch more. Okay, so there's too many games, right? I'm not even talking about backlog. I'm talking about actively coming out. I've run into this weird situation where I notice it the most with DLC. And I have an extended story about this, but the Star Wars Outlaws DLC came out, and I went to go play it, and really, I thought enjoyed it. Again, stick around for the rest of that story. But I kept finding myself, doing that, and then playing Helldivers 2. Just had a big update where now you get to fight on Super Earth, where if you've played that game, you know why that's a big deal. It's really, really neat. And I'm doing another playthrough of Mass Effect Legendary Edition, the whole trilogy. And I'm in Mass Effect 3, and I'm trying to, stream that, and I'm getting towards the end, and I'm catching myself playing all these old games, and then feeling guilt that I'm not playing things that have come out more recently, things that, like Doom. It didn't really click with me. I think if I played it more, it probably would, but I'm not playing it more because I'm playing other stuff. And it's really interesting. That's not even to add on the backlog I have of second playthroughs I want to do. Hellblade 2, Senua Saga, which we'll be talking about shortly. When you play through that game the first time, you have the sirens or whatever they're called in your head the whole game, right? That's happened in the first game as well. It happens in the second game. It's one of the really cool parts of that game. Well, if you don't know, spoilers, I guess, when you beat the game, one of the characters in the game who's very important becomes the voice in your head for a whole playthrough. And it gives you a different perspective on the entire game. And then I'm under the impression that if you play it a third time, there's another voice in your head. And I can't even remember, or I don't know who it is. But I've heard, and because it's a fairly short game, it's got some replayability. Not to mention that I want to do second playthroughs of, God, all the way back to Plague Tale Requiem. I want to play through that again. I don't have time for that. I want to do another playthrough of Dragon Age the Veilguard. I just don't have time, right? I want to do another playthrough of Mass Effect Andromeda. I've only ever played it on Xbox Series X, and it plays like crap on there. It's terrible. So I want to do a PC playthrough. And it's just all this stuff. It's just it's so overwhelming, and it's great, whether you have Game Pass or not. Even if you don't have Game Pass, there's still tons of games coming out if you're willing to pay full price for them. It's just, it's really interesting. It just feels so different than even 5 or 10 years ago, where you would have a couple blockbuster hits every year. And then in between that, there wasn't much. And often those games came out in the holidays where, at end of the year, second half, last third of the year. And you would literally have entire droughts where maybe some weird little indie games or something small would come out, sports games, things like that. But not like it is now. There's all this talk about release timing and delaying for Grand Theft Auto 6 and all this stuff. And I've made the argument for quite a while now that you kind of can't delay around other games anymore because every month there's a big game. So at some point you just have to pick a day and go for it because you'll never release your game. The days of Titanfall 1 and 2, especially 2, kind of getting screwed over by releasing around Call of Duty and Battlefield, that's just how it is now. It's really interesting. It's overwhelming. But it's an embarrassment of riches, right? How can we complain about having too many good games? It's why I get really frustrated when I sometimes see people do the whole games these days so bad. What are you talking about? Sure, lots of mediocre games get released, but lots of really good ones get released too. A lot of those games are indie games or games from, lesser known studios and stuff. But even the big names are still releasing good games as well. Assassin's Creed Shadows just came out and it was awesome. It was a great game. It was really good. Last year, Veilguard was awesome. Star Wars Outlaws was awesome. Just there's good games. There's just good games all the time, and it's a great problem to have. I'm glad we have it. I just fear for what the next 5-10 years brings. Of like, there's just going to be constant releases of these big games. We may see some retraction in the market or in the studios and stuff. We'll have to wait and see. But as it stands right now, it seems like it's only going to get worse. So it just makes me wonder, especially in the future, but even now, if like really good games are going to get passed up and missed simply due to too many. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, getting into the gaming news for this last week. Hellblade 2 Senua Saga is coming to PlayStation 5 this summer. This was officially announced by Ninja Theory. They have not given a date quite yet, but they did confirm that there will be, I believe it's called the Enhanced Edition. And it will have PS5 Pro specific features, and it will be coming out on the PS5. They've also said that it's going to have other features and improvements and stuff. I would say the most likely thing they're going to add, even to Series X, maybe S, will be a performance mode. It's a performance heavy game. There's a reason that, even to this day, I believe they still don't have a 60 FPS mode on console. My guess is that they will have figured out how to do that. I would say less likely additions would be maybe some cut content they're adding back in, if there was any sections of the game they feel like they can put in, and maybe other small features like that. I'm not expecting like a DLC. I don't think that Ninja Theory is a DLC company, and I don't think Hellblade 2 it would make sense. If they wanted to do like an extended edition of the game, or maybe they put back in some cut content or something to make the game a bit longer, that's cool. It maybe, per my discussion before, would maybe give me a reason to come back and play through it again. But I loved Hellblade 2, and personally, I really, really hope this is an opportunity for them to get the recognition that game deserved. In my opinion, that game, and still to this day, set the standard for graphics, audio, animation, voice acting, music. Like, it's a really, really, really good game. And even gameplay I thought was awesome. And I still to this day believe that at least some of the reviewers I saw, the game they reviewed was the first like 3 hours of Hellblade 2. And during said reviews, I find it super hard to believe those people finished the game, which is weird. And it's a weird accusation to make because it's famously a short game. Like, it's, 8 to 10 hours is pretty easy to beat it in. So it's like, of any game that would be hard, that it's hard to say someone didn't finish it. It's such a short game, but that also makes me wonder, like, did they get a few hours in and be like, oh, okay, I know what this is. And at least I believe that the second half of the game really does evolve, where the first half is pretty similar to the first game in a lot of ways, even though I think it's really good. I still think that, I think the reviews were unfair of this game, and it's still reviewed well, but I think it should have been much higher than it is. And I also wonder if it coming out on PlayStation will adjust those conversations a bit. I find it hard to not acknowledge that Hellblade 2 suffered from Xbox exclusivity and the bias that comes against a lot of the games in that situation. I hate the whole idea of the conspiracies and stuff around that. It's likely not even like a concerted effort, but whether it's subconscious or bias or whatever, I don't think it got a fair shake. And as someone who played through the game and really enjoyed it, many of the criticisms I heard felt like things that maybe wouldn't have been an issue if the release was different. But maybe that's my own bias. This continues a trend that Xbox hasn't really been shy about. They are releasing their games on all platforms, or at least any platforms that will take them. It seems like we've already had multiple games go to PlayStation 5, some of them months after it comes out or a year later, like Hellblade, some of them day and date, like Doom, The Dark Ages. It sounds like Xbox is kind of letting studios make that decision, make that call. I personally think that there's still value in them having like a 6 month to 12 month exclusivity period. So far, A lot of them have been even longer than that. Right now, we're still waiting for like Starfield to come to PlayStation, which has been pretty widely rumored, literally for years now. And that's cool. Like my whole thing is that once a game is no longer selling Game Pass subs or hardware, then why not put it everywhere? Hellblade 2 is almost certainly not selling consoles and not selling Game Pass subs anymore, right? It probably did right when it came out, at least a few. But once that's over, you're just losing money by not allowing everyone to buy it. And that's kind of how I feel about everything. You get into some weirdo territory there with like ongoing games, live service games and such. But then you saw like Sea of Thieves went to PlayStation a while back, and it's been hugely successful for Xbox and that studio and that game. And you have a bunch of new people who get to play this great game, right? I just I don't have an issue with it. I think the day and date, like Doom, the Dark Ages, is a little tougher to swallow because you do want to see that company who invests all this money and all that benefit. If you're a fanboy, you want to see that exclusivity happen. But you also have to wonder, like, if it mattered, if it really made, if it did help, they would do it, right? No one's forcing Microsoft to do multi-platform, and in some ways, it doesn't make sense. But it kind of does, and it seems like it's working. We've been seeing it's like 4 of the top 5 games sold last month or something on PlayStation were published by Xbox. Like that's crazy. Like imagine if that was the other way around, right? The only PlayStation published game on Xbox for years has been MLB The Show. A few years ago, it became multi-platform because the MLB forced it. So it's interesting. I'm excited to see Hellblade 2 get a bigger audience. At the end of the day, I think that should be the goal. These studios, these developers, I don't think many of them really care about the console war stuff. I think they want as many people to play the thing that they made as possible. And I think that should be the priority as well. Speaking of Xbox, we have Game Pass is having quite a year already, and it looks like it's going to continue being crazy through the rest of the year. The upcoming releases are Metaphor ReFantazio, which to a lot of people was Game of the Year last year, The Division 2, which we'll get back to that, and Stalker 2, which is a game that just came out less than a year ago and was not on Game Pass. Or no, it was on Game Pass, wasn't it? Or was it not? I can't remember. I think it was. I don't know why it's on there. We'll have to figure that out now that I think about it. But The Division 2 is an interesting one because they have DLC coming out next week, the day after this hits Game Pass. And in theory, I assume that means you can get the Game Pass version and then pay the 10 or 15 bucks or whatever it is for the DLC, play it all, and you're good to go. Like, it's super smart, especially knowing that they're putting a big emphasis on making the entry into that game easier and more streamlined for new players. They would only be doing that if they're getting lots of new players and if they anticipate on getting more with moves like this. This just kind of continues the conversation for me that Xbox is quietly like really making a huge, I don't know if I would even call it a comeback necessarily, because they've just kind of been doing their own thing. All 3 of the major console platforms, as much as people want to compare them, and they're in the same industry, so I get it, but they truly are kind of doing their own things, and they're becoming harder and harder to compare. Nintendo literally doing their own thing, like almost completely. Lower end hardware, relying heavily on first party exclusive games, and having okay third-party support. Seems like it's going to be a little better with the Switch 2, but probably not forever, and probably still not that much. Well, you have PlayStation doing the old school thing, selling PlayStations, and in theory, relying on their first party to keep them going. But then they're in a weird spot because they've been releasing very, very little first party games, right? We had Astrobot last year, and that was a cool game, but it sounds like it didn't sell that well. And it was kind of I think, kind of a gimmick to the journalist to be like, ooh, look at this thing. You should vote for us for Game of the Year, even though this game isn't going to be like a huge thing for us, right? And they're still selling lots of consoles. They're at almost like 80 million sold of PS5s. That's really good. You can't deny that. But it's on a product that makes almost no money. Now, they make more money from things sold on it than on other stores. So it makes sense that they care about that. But that's becoming less of a factor, I think. And then with their games, they had Astrobot. What was the last big one? Spider-Man 2. They have Death Stranding coming out this year, which will eventually come to Xbox and is like a third-party thing. And, maybe we have Wolverine coming eventually. They do have Ghost of Yotai, which is probably pretty popular and loved. It's just weird. It's weird how little they're putting out. But it seems like as long as they keep selling consoles, you're not really going to see that conversation change. And okay, like good for them. I wish it was consistent. I feel like if Xbox and PlayStation were reversed right now, and their fortunes were reversed, and the way things are going were reversed, the conversations would be very, very different, especially amongst journalists, but even amongst the kind of gaming community. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's all in my head. I have no idea. Naughty Dog is working on a second unannounced game. Neil Druckmann was on Sacred Symbols podcast with Colin. I think it's Moriarty. I think is his last name. Personally, not my favorite podcaster in the world, but to each their own. That's fine. This was a pretty cool interview for him to get. They said that so they're working on the Interstellar Galactic whatever game that's coming out. I think it's been talked about next year or the year after. It's their first title since The Last of Us 2, knowing that in between there was an online game that was worked on and then canceled, which is a theme for PlayStation Live Service games. That's a whole different discussion that we've had a lot lately. This new project, we literally know nothing about it. Another thing that came from this interview that I thought was interesting is that he confirmed that, so if you're the Last of Us fan, at the end of The Last of Us 1, sorry, spoilers for a 15-year-old game that's been remade 15 times. One of the main characters, Ellie, the younger girl, is captured or taken in by this group who thinks that they can take her, these growths in her brain that have made her immune to this worldwide pandemic. They can use that to create a cure to inoculate people and potentially save people who were like recently infected or something, right? And at the end of the game, the other main character, Joel, the kind of fatherly protective figure that you play as in the first game, goes on a rampage in this hospital and kills everyone, including the doctors who were trying to perform this procedure to try to make this cure. Well, for years since then, there's been a debate of like, would this cure have even worked? Like, I think the doctor was like a veterinarian or something, or it was something along those lines. There's a lot of questions of like, could they have really made a cure by killing this girl and ripping these things out of her brain that they thought maybe would have helped? And so that conversation's always been interesting because if there's a side of the community who thinks that Joel and Ellie are kind of the bad guys. They kill a lot of people. They ruin a lot of lives on their own mission. And then there's other people who love those characters and think they're the good guys, right? And a big part of that discussion has always been, well, Joel, it didn't make a difference that he killed all those people to save Ellie. He was saving an innocent girl, and the cure wouldn't have worked. There's no way it would have worked. And then people on the other side, right? Well, now it confirms that one side's right. Basically, you can still have your opinion, obviously, but like Joel objectively did a bad thing, right? By preventing this cure from coming out and preventing at least future infections and, the eventual getting back to normal in theory, right? So that's just a weird thing for him to do, for Neil Druckmann to do, at least in my opinion. Like, why? Like, it doesn't benefit anyone to clarify that situation. And now it's in there. And as if the conversation around The Last of Us 2 and the show and the casting of the show, as if that stuff couldn't get more toxic. Now it is more toxic because we've been given this answer that we didn't really need. But Neil Druckmann, man. I don't have a personal problem with him. It seems like he's obviously made some of the best games ever made, or at least some really, really respected games. But it really does seem like he gets kind of drunk on his own farts every now and then, and kind of pokes the bear a bit too much. But maybe that's just me. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is getting a re-release of their Monolith statue and art book. It is expensive. I will tell you right now that if you want to order this, it's going to be almost $200 with shipping, at least here in the States. It's also a pretty unique game. It comes with an art book I was going to get anyways. So if you want all that stuff, it's available for pre-order right now. You just need to go to their website and look for the links. I think Expedition 33 is a very special game in the history of games, especially recent history, but just in general as well. And I think it's fair to want this. Maybe that's me doing a little bit of copium. We'll see. Mario Kart World was meant to be a cross-gen game at one point. So in a recent, I believe it was an interview or a Q&A or something, they were talking about how they were originally going to kind of dial back some of the graphics and all of that of Mario Kart World to make it a Switch 1 and Switch 2 game. And they decided to make it a Switch 2 game exclusively. Like, yeah, duh. Have you seen this game? Like, it looks, for their art style, for what they're doing, it looks fine. I'm sure it looks great. Maybe the Switch 2 version is going to have some, higher texture quality, and some of the shaders and stuff will be higher quality, particle effects and so on. But like, yeah, like obviously it's a Switch 1 game. Like, come on. I don't think anyone was saying like, oh, wow, that Mario Kart World sure looks revolutionary. I can't believe this is even on the Switch 2. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little antagonistic about this, but I don't know if they thought people were really going to be like gasp, what? That definitely Switch looking game was meant to be on the Switch. I'm surprised they're doing that, because there's like 160 million Switches out there, and Mario Kart's one of their biggest games ever. But I also get that it's going to be a big push for them to try to get people to move up to the Switch 2. It's a little dirty, because even by their own words, it sounds like it's kind of a forced thing that they could put it on the old consoles. The dirtiest thing they could do, the funniest thing I think, would be for them to do the Switch 2 version through like the holidays for like 6 months, and then like in early 2026 be like, hey guys, we figured out how to make this work on the Switch also. So now that we've sold our 30-40 million Switch 2s, a lot of people doing it just to play this new game. Well, by the way, you can actually still play it on the Switch. It would be hilarious to have like the reverse exclusive deal, but I wouldn't put it past them. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to ride that game very much into selling a bunch of Switch 2s. I mean, this is what PlayStation 5 did. Like, you can't convince me to this day that Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart couldn't have been on PlayStation 4. And we know it could be, because when it came to the big thing with that was the gimmick of like, oh, these portals can only be done with PlayStation 5's exclusive whatever SSD setup. And then it came out on PC, and it worked on like old school hard drives. Not as well, obviously, it wasn't as smooth, but it worked, where I felt like they kind of claimed that it wouldn't. So like Rift Apart, even God of War Ragnarok, like a bunch of these games that came out and were big games for the PlayStation 5, probably moved a ton of consoles, were games that 100% could have been cross-gen, especially on the PS4 Pro, but even on the base game, because they were all sequels, they were all continuations of PS4 games. They almost certainly could have made them cross-gen, probably sold more copies, but probably wouldn't have sold as many consoles, which at the time, and seemingly still today, is still PlayStation's like main focus, is moving units. And they've moved almost 80 million. Can't blame them, right? So yeah, this just reminds me of that so much, of this thing where like they could have made these games cross-gen. Any third party definitely would have. But when your goal is to move units of your new hardware, you do what you got to do. I can't even blame them. I wonder how that strategy will work in the long run. And I'm glad that my console of preference is extremely good about backwards compatibility and cross-gen support and all that. So there's my little Xbot entry. Anno 117 gameplay trailer showing ground combat and more was revealed. This is the Roman Anno game. If you don't know what this is, the Anno series, I've only played 1800 exclusively or extensively, and it's a city builder where you have to balance the happiness and the cleanliness of your city with monuments and manufacturing and farming and textiles, and you have to. It's a city manager. It's a Sim City to the extreme, but it also has other components. So there's natural disasters and there's things like that. In Anno 1800, there's like pirates and rival towns and cities that you can have like naval warfare with, or and siege their cities and things like that. What's really cool about Anno 117 or 117 is it's going to involve ground combat as well. So, which kind of makes sense for, those factions. And it looks like, in this trailer, they talked all about how you can focus on economics and trade and, keeping yourself powerful, or you can go on expeditions out to other lands and conquer other places and things like that. So it looks super, super cool. I really love Anno 1800. It is a very beautiful game, a very satisfying game to play. And a very frustrating game at times, but in the best way. And I'm sure Anno, this new one's going to be very, very similar. And I'm super excited to play it. They don't have any release dates yet. My guess, probably late this year. But they're being pretty vague about that so far. I can't wait. Star Wars Outlaws. So it has a new DLC called A Pirate's Fortune, and I was super excited to play it. I was like, hey, I like this game. They've improved it a ton. The quality of life improvements on Outlaws, if you played when it came out, I got to play before it came out, but if you played when it came out, they have improved the quality of life of this game so much, especially in the combat, even the speeder. Now you can shoot on the speeder without the stupid mechanic they had before where you can only do like the dead eye thing. Now you can just shoot if you want. It's great. They've also kind of changed the game up. You can definitely feel it, where it used to be like a kind of a pseudo stealth game. And like literally there were missions where if you failed the stealth, it would end the mission. You'd have to restart. I believe there are still some very, very specific situations like that. But for the most part, they've made it so you can just go in guns blazing. And if you just want to run in there, use your abilities, use your special gun gadgets and all that, blow everything up, shoot everybody, you can do that. It seems like it's not really discouraging that anymore. So anyways, I played through this whole DLC. I'm like, man, this is great. It was so much fun. Only for me to realize, like, wait a second. I just played the Lando Calrissian DLC from last year. And the new DLC isn't even showing up in my game. Only for me to realize that on Xbox, I needed to go to like the game store in Xbox and install the DLC, and then it popped up in my game. So what's funny is I played through the whole DLC from last year, the Lando Calrissian one. It's great. I loved it. I had so much fun with it. And I thought I was done playing Outlaws for a while, maybe forever. Well, now I've got a whole nother DLC to play, and so I'll be jumping into that soon. So I don't have a review of the new DLC because even though I thought I played it, I didn't. I will talk about that here in the next couple weeks. But I really enjoyed the last one. So if you generally enjoyed Outlaws but didn't like some of the small things, it might be worth checking out again to see if that's been relieved. I liked it from the start. I think K-Vest is a cool character. The music in that game is insane. The visuals, it's a very pretty game, especially the more like interior areas. The outdoors look pretty rough on console. I'll be honest. It does not look great. The FSR is doing some heavy work on the exteriors of that game. But the interiors look great. And in general, it just has a cool design. Like I said, the music's great. It has some really fun characters. I like the gameplay. I think it's fun to play. It's very satisfying. So, yeah, Star Wars Outlaws, new DLC. Make sure you actually download it and you play the one you think you're supposed to be playing. BioWare, I always kind of, whenever I can talk about this, I throw it in here when I can. They are hiring a senior animator for Mass Effect 5. They still have a senior tech artist job that's been up for a couple months. So I'm curious if they're hiring like multiple people in that position or if they're having trouble getting that position filled. I don't know enough about the industry to know how common that position is. So maybe there's other factors there. This is cool, like this is exciting for me. Any signs of life for Mass Effect 5 or the next Mass Effect is a good thing to me. Someone who only recently, in 2021, got into the trilogy and got really into it. Someone who I don't hate Andromeda. It's fine. Like I said before, I want to do a PC playthrough of it. So it's at like 60 FPS and has much higher texture resolution than on Xbox, I hope. I'm excited for this game. You know, if you have been around for a long time, you'll know I covered all of the production years of the Division 2 as well. I just kind of enjoy it. I enjoy paying attention to hiring listings and developers leaving little hints and winks and nods, right? I just have a good time with it. So I did make a little video about the senior animator job. It's interesting because it's the first time they've put up a listing in a really long time for Mass Effect specifically. The tech art, the senior tech artist job, doesn't actually mention Mass Effect at all. Where the senior animator job specifically says working on new Mass Effect experiences, which I'm assuming is them just being like, well, yeah, we haven't said what the game is called yet, so we're just gonna be very vague. Maybe it means they're working on multiple things, or that's the intent. I have no idea. That would be really cool, but I feel like that's one of those things where I feel like most of us should just be happy to see BioWare stick around long enough to make another game, and hopefully that game is super good so they can stick around much longer. But yeah, so I'm trying not to take too much from that. If you want a more in-depth video on that, you can check out my YouTube, where I just did a video about that senior animator job being posted. I think this game's probably going to be a next gen game at this point. If the next consoles come out in 27 or even 28, that's about when I'm expecting this game, if not even a hair later at this point. It's seeming more and more like some of the speculation a couple years ago by Jeff Grubb and others may end up being right, to my chagrin. I still think they're going to announce that the next Mass Effect will be in full production this year, 2025. I kind of thought they would do it already though. So at this point, I'd be pretty amazed if we hear anything significant about this game before N7 Day in November. I would be very amazed if we get, like, I'm not expecting a Mass Effect teaser during Summer Game Fest or Gamescom or anything like that. So we'll see. I would love to see more. We will probably get some blogs through BioWare directly before N7 Day. I would imagine maybe a production announcement or something. Who knows? Anything but layoff announcements, which most of their blogs have been for the last couple of years, or at least some of them. So yeah. Hey, for me, like I said, signs of life from BioWare. That's a good thing. I am rooting for them, and I'm hoping they can make a cool Mass Effect game to continue that series. Arc Raiders has a possible launch date of June 6th. This comes from people doing some sleuthing, where they on Steam there's a new exe file that got put on, and people found a way to download it and open it. And I guess some of the text in the file alludes to possibly a June 6th release date. That's the same day as Summer Game Fest. It wouldn't surprise me. That game felt so finished during that last test. I assume they're doing some polishing, some balancing from that test, and then they'll release it. It wouldn't surprise me at all if during Summer Game Fest they do a shadow drop and say, "Hey, it's available right now on all consoles, all platforms. Go nuts. Go raid Arc people," or whatever they would say. I loved that game. I had a ton of fun with it, to the point where I stopped playing it because I want to wait for the full release so I get to keep my progression. Because I could tell, I'm like, ooh, I like this. This is fun. I'm going to spend a lot of time in this game. But I don't want to do it, because I've done this before, where I played like Diablo was one like this. And a few other games where I played so much of the beta or the test or the demo that by the time the game actually came out, at least at first, I felt kind of burned out by it. So I'm trying to, I stayed away from Arc Raiders to a point to try to preserve that. So hopefully it does come out in June. I think that'd be a great summer game for me. I would love to have that available, but I also want them to finish it. So let's see. Let's make sure it gets done first. Kind of hitting the last few stories here. Embracer Group realigns their studios once again. I couldn't even figure out the way that they're reorganizing. Long story short, they're moving stuff around once again. And they claim that they're going to release 76 games in the coming fiscal year. Mind you, this is a publisher who has barely released anything for years, since they've existed. So, you know, we'll see. I'm not super hopeful that that's a thing that is actually going to happen, but we'll have to wait and see. So I will not be holding my breath for that. The Stellar Blade developers in a big kind of their financial disclosures, and they had a presentation where they showed that they're expecting to launch the sequel to Stellar Blade before 2027. So I guess in 2026. That'll be interesting. So this game, if you remember, this has been kind of like the Gunnar bait game. It from all accounts is that the gameplay is legitimately fun. That it's a good kind of, not like a Souls game, but maybe a little bit, but more of like an action oriented one. The story, and I know this for a fact from watching a bunch of summary videos on it and stuff, is hot garbage. The characters are terrible. Like it's basically like Nier Automata, like dollar store version. They've tried to do something similar, and it's not the most inspiring thing in the world. I have zero doubt in my mind that this is going to be a complete cash grab. I'm sure it'll have great gameplay, and maybe even better, right? But the idea of them churning out another game in a couple years, I wonder what lies they'll tell about it not being on Xbox next time. Maybe it'll be an Xbox exclusive for all we know. We never know where they're gonna go with this stuff. Or no, that's Wukong, not Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade's they're clearly an exclusive. But anyways, like, good for them. I know people are excited about the PC release of this game so they can do all their mods. Keep an eye out for that. Maybe have your not safe for work filter on. Then the final story, which I found to be kind of an interesting one, is SAG-AFTRA is suing a Fortnite production company that used an AI to create lines for Darth Vader in a recent Fortnite update or some new content. What's interesting about that is that James Earl Jones, the voice actor for Darth Vader, who has passed away, signed over the rights to Disney to use AI to recreate his voice for future projects, which I assume was used, the licensing on that was used here. And so that kind of negates the lawsuit a little bit, except I believe that even though the rights are signed over, I guess there's still agreements that SAG-AFTRA will be notified when that gets used. So even though they can't stop them from doing the AI voice, they're still supposed to be notified or something. I mean, this seems... The headline is what it's all about, because the actual workings of it is just like a procedural dispute. It seems like, again, Disney and whoever they license it out to are allowed to recreate James Earl Jones's rendition of Darth Vader however they want, as often as they want, forever. I assume there's some dividends or some kind of fees that get paid to James Earl Jones's estate, his family, whoever's controlling his properties. But this was kind of a non-story, but that's okay. As for content updates, I did open up my new Bond Diesel archive channel on YouTube. That's where all my live stream videos are going to go, VODs and so on. It was cluttering up my main channel so much. I had to get rid of it. I am nearing the end of my Mass Effect 3 playthrough, my modded Legendary Edition playthrough. I believe we're starting a Rannoch arc. So if you've played the game, you know that that's getting towards the end. I've done most of the side stuff already. After that, I don't know what I'm going to play. I do have a vacation coming up, and I'll be busy this summer doing family stuff, but I'll still make sure we do this podcast, and I stream every here and there. We'll be covering the big showcases and all of that for sure, and I'll try to be doing my game reviews and impressions and some gameplay and all that as I can. So just kind of keep an eye out. Oddly, I've been trying to stream more lately, which I've been relatively successful at. So make sure to go over to Twitch and look for Bond Diesel and follow me on there to catch those. I always love chatting with people about the podcast or things that are going on or kind of really anything. So be sure to catch me there. But yeah, that's kind of the content updates for this one. Nothing super definite, besides that we do have the showcases coming up here very soon. Okay, and that's where we're going to wrap this episode up. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, leave a review on Spotify or iTunes, and subscribe to the Bond Diesel YouTube channel to get all of my videos, including this podcast. Thank you to everyone who supports as YouTube members and Twitch subscribers. If you are interested in supporting this podcast and all of my other content, please check out the links in the show description. If you have any other questions or feedback, please hit me up on the Spotify or YouTube comments. Let me know in my Discord or hit me up on social media at Bondiesel or at the Baunfire. That is all I have for this episode of the Baunfire Gaming Podcast. So, until next time.